one, you want to have a safe place where it's just like, I can tell you what I feel and not feel bad about how I felt, right? I think when I actually posted a quote this week about that, where it's just like, yo, we are all better than the worst thing we've ever done. But we could be in a relationship or whatever, and we've done something bad that we're not particularly proud of, and we share with the person that we love that we're hoping will be understanding, considerate, compassionate, and accepting and forgiving, and they do the complete opposite. And it hurts us. And that actually makes us, or at least that would make me feel really defensive. Or just like, I made a mistake, but you make mistakes all the time. Right? So just like that's one thing where it's just like we're not in a we haven't created that environment of heartfelt understanding where we could admit our flaws and help each other build on those things. Damn, you said
I welcome you.
What up, world? It's your man Ben Bakayoko, and welcome to another edition of Ben and Tima, the perfectly imperfect couple podcast. What up, guys? We pumped up, geeked up, and super excited to be here on another edition for you guys, man. So I'm Ben Bakayoko, and it's Terminator Tima. All right?
No turban today.
No turban today. So what we're going to talk about today, guys, we were just listening to a podcast on relationships, right? And what the guy said was there are two common reasons why people get divorced or end their relationships, right? And he was just saying it's just like everything boils down to these two. So of course there's some other reason, but these are the two main reasons, right? And he said the first reason was, drum roll, brrr. Number one reason was, I forgot, that's why I did the drum roll.
That's a jog of memories from the the first one was outgrowing. So when the spouses or partners are outgrowing each other, and that becomes a problem. And the second one is you not being able to handle yourself at your worst, let alone not being able to handle your spouse in their,
All right, so the two most common reasons are one, you outgrow each other, or one spouse outgrows the other, and the second reason is you can't handle yourself, or your spouse. You can't handle your spouse. Deep. All right, so we're gonna go into detail with those two things, and I'm gonna start with the second one where you can't handle yourself, or you can't handle your spouse. And I'm not even sure if we're gonna have time to get into the first one because this one is so deep, right? So what does he mean when he's like, yo, you can't handle yourself, or you can't handle your spouse? All right, so what that means to me at this point in time is I came across a quote the other day, right? I think I sent it to you, babe, but I was just looking for it, so I can't find it. So we talked about it definitely. And what he said was like, yo, one of the signs of maturity as a human being, as somebody in a relationship, is like, yo, you have to be able to understand that you ain't perfect. Like there are some things that are effed up about you, or that you ain't got fully figured out. Like there has to be a clear understanding about that. And for the longest time, I love how Fatima said this about me. It's just like I just thought too highly of myself. I thought I had everything figured out. And the truth is, like, there's certain parts of me that I don't even want to accept for myself, or I'm not even aware of myself, and that's hindered our relationship. And maybe I can see that quality within myself, and everybody around me could see it, but especially Fatima, right? So now the question is, when it comes back to, can you handle me? Can I handle me, or can you handle me? Right? So when we think about relationships or whatever, when we're in love phase, when we're newlyweds, when we're in the first dating phase, newlyweds, just getting into the relationship, it's easy to just see all the beautiful things about your spouse. That's light work. But it's just like 6 months in, 3 weeks in, I don't know how long it takes you to just see.
Everything is just rainbows and butterflies and just take a walk in the park type of situation.
Yeah, so it's just like, how long does it take you to realize that your spouse ain't perfect? And then what you And yeah, and then the question is, what do you do when you realize they ain't as perfect as you thought they were?
Yeah, that's when war begins.
He said that's when war begins.
Yeah.
And that's when love steps in.
Right. That's when love steps in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because love is a choice.
Okay.
Right.
So they were not in love the whole time. They were just pretending.
What do you think about that?
I don't think it's pretending, but I think maybe they weren't. It is the in love phase, but I think the in love phase was like not realistic. You're just seeing what you want to see in this person. So I don't think so. It's like reality hasn't necessarily set in yet.
Mm-hmm.
So now after the phase is done, then you're like, oh, did he always snore like that?
Did he always snore?
Did he always chew with his mouth open? Why didn't I realize it before? Like that. So, you're off your high. So now you're in a better headspace. And, reality is real. It's really real now. So I think you're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful, baby. You explained that perfectly. So it's just like what you were saying is just like the in love phase or whatever that thing we feel when we first meet somebody or when we first get married, that honeymoon phase. Mm-hmm. It's not fake. Like we genuinely love and care for the person that we're in a relationship with. But it's just like sooner or later it gets to the point where you're just like, what did I miss the first few weeks of our relationship, the first few years of our relationship? Was he always like this or was she always like this? It's just like, did they always snore?
Yeah.
Did they always leave the seat cover up? Yeah. Did they always just not clean up after themselves? Like, how?
She always crazy? Well, yeah, I mean, she lost 5 jobs. Like,
yeah, but she always crazy, and that's the thing. And that's coming back to the topic. Is just like the reason why we leave or whatever. It's just like we can't handle ourselves or we can't handle our let alone our spouse. So it's just like when you get to that point where it's just like that reality set in and you start seeing all of the things that you don't particularly love about your spouse, what do you do? Because that's when we really start considering, should I leave or should I go? Like, this ain't what I paid for. This ain't what I thought it was going to be. This is not how.
I want to refund.
Yeah, I want to refund.
I want to do over.
I want to do it. Take my. Exactly, and that's what people didn't want to do. Or let me find somebody else.
Yeah. You jump in the same situation again.
And in the beginning, it's all lovey-dovey, and it's like reality settings again, and it's just like, yo, you're somebody different. Like, what the hell is going on? But in reality, it's not.
I was always like this. You just didn't see it.
You didn't see it.
You saw what you wanted to see.
Yeah, and truth be told, and it may not even be. I guess the opposite, to play devil's advocate, because you're right. Maybe I did just see whatever it was, whatever I wanted to see, but at times, depending, because this is what I know, right? Because when we feel loved, it's really easy to be loving.
Right. So in the beginning, it's very easy to give love and just, sure, I'll take out the trash for you, all lovingly. Okay.
Because it's just like, at that point, the playing field is even. I know in my heart, from the depths of my soul, that you love me, right? And she'll do anything for me, and I'll do anything for her.
Yeah.
But then when then something always happens where it's just like, we may start to doubt that.
Yeah, later down the line.
So maybe they don't come home on time. Maybe they don't say sorry. Maybe they don't clean up after themselves. There's always an argument, conflict, or fight that arises that may just make us want to doubt the fact that our spouse actually loves us the way they claim they love us.
Especially since we are, like, our nature is worth. I don't know how to put into words, but we just doubt. That's nature of being a human being.
Exactly.
So somewhere down the line, it's normal to have that doubt. But sometimes when that doubt is not being reassured, that's when I feel like it's a little hectic.
Yeah. So what's deep about what you said is just like, so once something does happen that makes you doubt how your spouse cares for you, loves you, or whatever, what you're saying is we need to be reassured. But what happens when you have that doubt, when you're just like, yo, I don't think he loves me. He did X, Y, and Z, right? What if you never share that? What if you keep that doubt to yourself?
Okay.
What if you never talk about it? What if you have a fight but you never really get over the fight? What if you have a disagreement and never really talk about the disagreement?
There's no way a relationship can be successful without that.
Yeah.
You're blocking communication lines. So
ooh, that's big. We're blocking our communication lines. One of the things that we actually heard together just now was just like, yo, we need to learn how to fight. Yeah. Right? Not only that, we need to learn how to freaking communicate. Like we need to learn how to handle conflict. And it's just like that's something that sometimes we may not learn at home or we may not learn in school. Like that conflict is good and there's a way to handle it where you don't have to scream, yell, bicker, and complain, where you're actually just sitting down like, yo, this is how I feel, all right? This is how I feel. How can we come to an agreement that makes both of us feel good? That's something that we really just don't learn.
Yeah, because I think we live in a society where we really numb our pain. So who's teaching who? How do you have a healthy argument? You know, like just drink something or take something and not feel it and then sweep it under the rug and pretend that everything is okay. So really, how do you learn how to argue and within boundaries? How do you know how do you learn how to fight within boundaries and still keep it respectful? We always see the two extremes. Is either you're in a relationship in which you're not talking, you're unhappy, but you're not expressing yourselves, or you're in a relationship in which is just too crazy. You guys are a little bit too expressive, like just throwing knives at each other, and that's typically what we see. You're not throwing knives, throwing hot soup, or just anything. So
freaking hot grits.
Yeah, hot grits. Yeah. So it's like the two extremes. So we really that's a good point. We really do have to educate ourselves and figure out. Okay, well, we're married. We will have arguments. We're going to agree to disagree, like we're not going to see eye to eye. But in case that does happen, how do we go about it? Like you said, what are the rules of engagement? You know, I'm not going to cross the line, but we do need to have, like a safe space where I could,
tell you how I feel.
Yeah, and not feel bad for telling you how I feel. You know what I mean?
I love everything you just shared. It's fire. It's so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because you said so many deep things, and it's just like I want to remember everything you said. But let's see. So it's just like one, you want to have a safe place where you're just like I can tell you what I feel, and I feel bad about how I felt. Right? I think when I actually posted a quote this week about that, where it's just like, yo, we are all better than the worst thing we've ever done. Okay. But we could be in a relationship or whatever, and we've done something bad that we're not particularly proud of, and we share with the person that we love that we're hoping will be understanding, considerate, compassionate, and accepting, and forgiving, and they do the complete opposite. And it hurts us. And that actually makes us, or at least that would make me feel really defensive. Or just like, I made a mistake, but you make mistakes all the time. Right, so just like that's one thing where it's just like we're not we haven't created that environment of heartfelt understanding where we could admit our flaws and help each other build on those things. You said
I welcome you and all of your flaws. Like, as long as you're willing to work at it, that's how I see it. Like.
Yeah, that's why I love this podcast, the Perfectly Imperfect Couple. Right, it's just like I love you. I don't just love the good part of you.
Right. The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. And it's just like, and that's exactly what it is. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Like literally the good. Then there is bad. Yeah. And then there's freaking ugly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love all of it.
Yeah.
I want all of it.
But you just said something important. I think in order to be acceptance of someone else's baggage, someone else's good, bad, and ugly, you have to accept those elements within yourself.
No doubt.
And I think a lot of times because we run away and we numb our feelings, run away from our own selves, it's very hard to accept someone else's baggage without having claim our own shit and let alone, accept it and then work through it and deal through, you know what I mean? So it's challenging.
Claim your own shit.
Yeah, claim your own baggage, and you know what I mean? Like
baggage claim. That's what we're gonna call this one. Baggage claim.
So it's very, you understand how difficult that is?
No doubt. Yeah.
That's really hard. So it's like, how can I accept yours, and I can't even accept my own.
Yeah.
So.
That's what it is, and that's that second reason God says. So He said there's the two most common reasons people break up. One reason is, hey, we outgrow each other, and the second reason is you can't handle your stuff, nor can you handle your partner's stuff. So that's exactly where you're coming from. So it's just like, if I act like as though like I have everything figured out,
which you did.
Which I did, and hopefully we got time to give you an example of that. Like I act like I have everything figured out or whatever. All I'm gonna see is your negative stuff, and I'm gonna be like, why don't you have this figured out? Yeah. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm okay. Like, I'm perfect. Yeah. And you're screwed. Right? But on the other hand, if I'm like, yo.
It doesn't motivate your partner at all. That actually makes that's detrimental to you.
It's not healthy.
Not at all.
It's not healthy, but I've definitely done that, and it's just like, I don't know, like where I got that from. I feel as though I was conditioned to believe that way. It's just like how do my mistakes act like they don't exist and they just magically disappear? Yeah. But to get straight to the point here and be honest, it's just like what has to happen or what did happen that's really helping us out is just like you start to realize like, yo, I'm an effed up individual.
Yes.
Like, I'm not perfect. And then once I realize that I'm not perfect, when I see your imperfections, I'm just like, yo, it's okay.
Yeah.
I make the same mistakes. It's cool. Like, how can we be better? Right. So, because now I want you to accept my good, bad, and ugly, but I can't. How can you accept my good, bad, and ugly if I pretend as though it doesn't exist?
Never exists, yeah.
Right. And then how can I accept yours if you're pretending like it doesn't exist? It doesn't work. So what's deep about the quote that I said when we first started is just like, yo, one of the signs of maturity is just like accepting full responsibility. And in order to accept full responsibility, like we kind of have to know, like we don't have everything figured out. Like we are not perfect. Like we're humans. Okay. And it's okay. I'm sorry I got to tell this joke, man. It's just like, yo, if you're perfect, like why are you on earth? Yeah. Like no doubt, like yeah, you don't belong on earth if you're perfect. Like they should have been called you up there. Like that's the only place perfect beings exist. Yeah. Right. So that's the idea. So with that understanding, man, and if we could dive into this, like you told me a few weeks ago, or freaking a few days ago, probably, it's like, yo, Ben, you think too highly of yourself. And I had to be like, yo, you know what? That's real. Yeah. Right? Because I like to see myself as a very thoughtful, considerate, compassionate, and understanding person. But under certain which I am, absolutely. That's the good. What's the bad? Under certain situations, I could be very
opposite of.
I could be the opposite. I'm looking for the word for it. Like I could be very non-demonstrative. Non-demonstrative is the word. Stand up. Yeah. So, because I'm breaking it down, right? Okay. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, the good me is just like compassionate, understanding, caring, loving, and considerate. Yeah. The bad me is non-demonstrative. Like I'm not showing my feelings. I can't think of the other words, but it's just like I'm not as compassionate. I'm stubborn. Right.
That's on the extreme.
Yeah. And then the ugly me is the extreme where it's just like now I'm just totally emotionally detached. I'm totally inconsiderate and just like, and I'm just shut off or whatever. Like that's the ugly me. But I never knew I could be that type of person. Like I really did think that I was emotionally detached, insensitive, and inconsiderate. Yeah. Like I would never see myself that way.
Yeah, we yeah.
But you would see that clearly. I'm like, no, I'm really being thoughtful. Yeah, but for real. And then the question is like, what causes me to be that way? Stress, fatigue, right? So there's this acronym, what I call is like HALT, right? So I've become non-demonstrative, insensitive, angry, upset, and all that other stuff when I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
You poor baby.
Yeah. And then the question is, where it's just like I gotta know my triggers. Like I gotta find out like what is it in me that's causing me, or what's happening in my environment that's causing me to be this different person. Like I didn't have my little Snickers bar or whatever. Like what's happening that's causing me to be not my best self.
Okay.
Right. So I gotta be aware, like, yo, I'm not always this happy-go-lucky person all the time, and then when I'm not, I gotta be aware, and then I gotta figure out what's causing it. Then I also gotta figure out like how is that affecting you. But if I pretended to, I always have everything figured out. It's just like I'm supposed to be upset. I'm supposed to be angry. I'm supposed to be emotionally detached. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Then there's a problem. How did you feel about everything I just said? Like I just went on a huge ass rant.
No. All right, Babbling Brook. Was it
Babbling Brook?
Yeah. Yes. I agree with what you said, but mostly what I took from what you said, I think it's important to know you. Like it goes back to the self-awareness that we always talk about. So just knowing you and paying attention to your cues and see how what gets you there and how can you get yourself back in your normal state, and then pay attention to how you start treating people. And I think it's in that situation it's important to see how people's reaction are towards you, because sometimes people like me are reacting, like we vibe off of your energy. So if you come at somebody with some kind of
come at you sideways,
then if you get that in return, then maybe instead of you snapping, maybe you're like, oh well, maybe it was my energy, that maybe something is going on with me here, let me take a step back and
what's interesting about that? It's just like when that happens, like I love that you just brought that up. So when I'm in my little negative, bad and ugly state, and I approach you differently or sideways, and you approach me sideways, that's what I say. What's wrong with her?
I know.
So I'm I'm not thinking what's wrong with me. I'm just like, I'm right. I'm good. I'm just.
Naturally, we would think that, but now that we know better, you understand that.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm a little,
But here's the deal. But what does that make when I think what's wrong with you? Do I become less angry, upset, and aggressive, or do I become more angry, upset?
Depends on you. Whatever direction you feel like taking that day, but naturally you become more. Yeah.
So, and does that help the situation or make it worse?
Of course, it doesn't help the situation.
But in the moment,
you justified it in the moment.
In the moment, I'm justifying it.
And like I said, now that we know better, and you get that type of, you could kind of be like, okay, well, you can assess it differently now than you could before. But
no doubt.
Yeah, so I think that's a good thing. Another thing he said that I thought was like pretty much highlight what we talked about. He mentioned, sometimes we're gonna be like, he used a porcupine analogy. They're gonna be all prickly and hard to hold, but you still gotta yeah. And I think the beautiful thing about that is, despite all that, we still want to know that somebody loves us and somebody will always be there for us, even if we're going through our own crazy shit, even when we become the most radical and insensitive and just going through life, we always want somebody there next to us. And it reminds me a lot of when I withdraw from you because I'm going through whatever I'm going through, and you walk away. It pisses me off because I don't mean to push you away, but it's just I'm going through whatever, and it's hard for me to say stay, but the fact that I still want you near me, next to me, despite me going through what I'm going through. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because we want love even when we're in the worst possible place ever. But it's like, now how do you snap out of that and just, open your mouth and say, hey, this is what I need from you. So I thought that was interesting.
What's deep about that is because we actually just hit on both of the things that he said for that most common reason, where it's just like learning how to handle yourself and learning how to handle your spouse. So I just told you about how, like, I was unaware of the fact that it's just like, I could be angry, upset, detached, insensitive under certain circumstances. So now I know how to handle myself. Certain circumstances. right? So now I know how to handle myself in those situations. Like I'm aware, right? But if I wasn't, that could really kill and hurt our relationship.
Absolutely.
And then you brought up the opposite side, where it's just like certain times when you may be going through something. It's just like you may be needing me to be loving to you. It's just like because of the way you're acting, it's just like you may withdraw and I kind of come close and you push me away. Then I actually leave. That doesn't make you feel too good.
No, but I get it.
Yeah. And the point I'm trying to make here now is just like, yeah, you get it. That's really cool, by the way. The point I'm trying to make here now is just like, yo, now I got to learn how to handle you.
Right.
When you're not being your best self, when you expose me to your bad and ugly, how do I handle that?
Right.
Can I get you from the bad and ugly state to the good state that you're normal?
Yes.
And I actually remember in the beginning of our relationship, when you did something in my head, and I think I might have told you this as well, I'd be like, yo, what did you do with my wife? Like, this is not my wife. Like, bring her back. Right? So it's just like, just understanding, just like, yo, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I love you all for it. But it's just like, I really think the genius in relationships is love is a choice. So I'm making a choice to love you no matter what. To love you when I'm seeing that bad and ugly side. And then developing a skill set to be able to get you from ugly to bad, from bad to good. That's a skill.
Yeah, it is.
And in order to develop that skill, there has to be love, or else
how do you?
I'm taking the door. Like I'm out. Wow. Yeah. Like I'm out. And that's the other thing that you brought up. You was just like, so how do you develop that skill?
So just you guys just learn each other's behaviors and just talk about it more. Get coaching, like what?
Definitely get coaching, guys. So
disc assessment.
Disc assessment, definitely. Coaching and the disc assessment. All right. So, but for real, like the number one thing in order to develop any skill, right? It got to be a desire.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you gotta want it.
Okay. So naturally, let's say it is a disaster. It is a desire. We know it is. So now that first step is completed, what is the next step? Like what comes after desire?
All right. So.
Or is it different for everybody?
So I'm gonna make this really deep. No, it's the same because you said there has to be a desire, but what's deep about?
You said it has to be a desire.
Okay, so I said it has to be a desire.
Yes.
But what's deep about desire is most of us don't have a. I said desire. There has to be a burning desire, not just desire.
Not just desire, but burning desire.
But desire. Okay. Because most of us have a wishbone and not a backbone.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Okay.
And I had to realize that about myself. So what's a wishbone? A wishbone is just like, yo, I wish my spouse would do better. I wish I had a better relationship with my spouse. I wish I had a better relationship with my family members. That's a wish. It's just like, yeah, you have a desire for it, you want it, but what are you going to do about it?
Right. Okay.
Absolutely nothing. I'll take the door as soon as it's available. You know? So it's just like, that's the easy way out. And if that's all, if you're willing to take the easy way out.
And it's not, you're not going to do what you
okay. And then there's a group of people who don't want to take the easy way out, but at the same time, it's just like they've tried a lot of things and it just hasn't worked. And just like, and a lot of times I call it learned helplessness, where it's like we try, and it doesn't work out. And then we convince ourselves like, yo, it's impossible. So now the desire dies. But it's just like we tried it our way. Like we didn't get the disc assessment, we didn't seek out help, we didn't get coaching from people who've learned how to make it work. So in those two scenarios, like you hurt. But if you have that burning desire where it's just like, yo, I'ma figure this out no matter what. You go get the coaching, you go understand yourself, study yourself, get counseling or whatever. That's that next level stuff. And that's where you start to develop the skill. So first there has to be that desire, I believe.
Okay.
Right. And then you said what's after that desire, you got to make a choice.
Okay.
And love is a choice. Right. You got to decide, like, yo.
Am I going to stay with this person? Am I going to not stay with this person? And if I stay with this person, these are the steps that needs to be taken. Like, what do you mean? Choice.
So when I mean choices, because we were just talking about that honeymoon phase, that in love phase, right? It's easy to love somebody when they love you.
When everything is all good.
When everything is all good. That's easy. So when I'm saying love is a choice, it's just like now when things are going bad, we can choose to stay or we could choose to leave. We could choose to forgive or we could choose not to forgive. Right? We could choose to fight or not fight.
But yeah, we might throw in there a little bit. It's also important to be discerning because you don't want somebody to stay in abusive relationships thinking that they're being the best spouse or, you know, best partner they can be because they've decided to stay. I feel like if you absolutely feel like you need to leave, then leave. Did I have? I feel like that's like a disclaimer because I don't know. Like some people may be in the relationship thinking maybe if I leave, that'll go against my religion or my beliefs or whatever. But that person is really in an abusive relationship and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
I just felt the need to.
No problem. I fully accept your disclaimer, right? So what's deep about that is like, yo, you're absolutely right. And it's just like you don't go from a beautiful relationship to an abusive relationship like overnight. And if you do, that's something very weird and rare, like RARE.
Yeah, rare. Okay.
All right, so we're not talking about that extreme right now, right? So we're just talking about normal relationships where it's just like maybe it hasn't gotten abusive, right? So disclaimer accepted, right? But that whole idea,
30 minutes already.
yeah, that whole idea where it's just like, yo, I'm gonna choose to love you no matter what. Like that has to be a choice, or it's just like I'm gonna choose to figure out how to make this work. Like, and the only way you can make that choice is when you start to realize it's just like, yo, I don't have everything figured out myself. Like you have to accept the fact that you're not perfect and your spouse isn't perfect. You got to accept the fact that you can do better and your spouse can do better. Like you have to actually believe that.
Right. So just kind of rewiring your mind to think different from what we were accustomed to thinking in the first place. Okay.
There's a better way. And I guess we could leave on that, like since we had 30 minutes. That whole idea, I remember Jim Ryan told a story before where it's just like there was this couple, they were married, right? And then they got divorced. And the husband, he had this whole book of library. He had a library or whatever. And he had all these books on relationships, how to be a better person and stuff like that. And he never touched the book.
So they were just there for show?
They were just there for show.
Wow.
And then he got divorced and he opened the book and he was like, where the F were all these books? Oh my. Right? It was just like it was right there, but he never opened the book.
No need to.
He didn't have a need or a desire to open the book. He thought everything was good, but it wasn't until everything went haywire that he finally opened the book. And by the time he opened the book, it was too late.
Okay. All right.
So it's just like, are you in enough pain right now where it's just like you're willing to open up the book, get coached, and seek help to make your relationship better? And two, are you willing, do you even believe that it can get better? Like you have those two things, there's hope. But if you don't have no hope and you don't think it could be better and you're not willing to do the work to find out how to make it better, it's just like, yo,
kind of SOL.
You SOL. And I like Gary Chapman, what he said was just like, yo, relationships, they either get better.
Even tell them about our experience. Okay.
Yeah. So what he said was relationships, they either get better or they get worse. They don't stay the same. There is no middle ground. They either get better or they get worse. And we've made a conscious decision to make our relationship better. And I could see how better it's becoming, like how wonderful it's becoming.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because what was the first thing? The first thing was outgrowing each other. And Mr. Ben here, who thought so highly of himself, thought that he was outgrowing me and was on the verge of
enlightenment. All right, we could close. All right, guys, look, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition. Please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on YouTube. And, definitely. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You guys rock, man. I'll catch you next time. Peace.
Bye.